Hey guys, what's up? Welcome in to Rolling with T-Bone. I'm so glad you guys are here. Hey, if you're new here, let me say first, welcome in. If you found us with all of the YouTube noise going on, with all the content creators, and you found my channel, thank you. I'm so glad you decided to click onto this episode. But hey, if you are new here, stick around to the end of this episode and I'll talk to you a little bit more. But for now, we've got an episode of Rolling with T-Bone about to start. So y'all grab your favorite beverage, grab your favorite snack, sit down in your favorite spot, and let's get on with the episode. Seriously guys, Rolling with T-Bone's about to start. Let's go.
T-Bone roars like a thunderstorm blast. Engine growling as the trees rush past. Wheels on fire carve the mountain's face. The legend rides with a reckless grace. T-Bone's shadow cuts the sky through the peaks where...
All right guys, welcome to Rolling with T-Bone. As we get ready, get set to have a random thoughts episode. So y'all hang tight. All right guys, welcome back to the truck. Man, it's been a long time since y'all been in the truck with me. On what is just an absolutely horrible day in North Georgia. A rainy day in Georgia, guys. Having to run a few errands for work here. So we've made it through all the episodes of the cryptid, well, not the cryptids, but the history of witches. I hope y'all enjoyed that. Going to be talking about in this episode are random thoughts, just things, guys, I've been having, and maybe some of y'all can identify with this. I've been having some of my best thoughts about content on my way to work in the morning when it's pitch black dark. So I am going to implement keeping a camera with me from now on. Like during the day when I'm running for lunch or running home at night or in the evening when I finally get off work, I can just hit record in the truck. And I'm not one of those guys, I don't have the convenience of riding my motorcycle back and forth to work every day. I have to have my truck because of all my tools and stuff that are in it. But so going forward, you're probably going to be seeing a lot more truck content. This little jewel right here, this is a digital voice recorder. So in the morning times as I'm driving to work, if I have a thought, hit a snag I can record it with my voice, or record it on my voice recorder, go back to it and remember what it was I was thinking, remember what the thought was that I had. So I've had this thing for years and just been in my bag, never really thought about it until Saturday morning. I had to go to work. I had to go put down 1,850 pounds worth of grass seed on a ball field. So I had all these thoughts going through my mind of content, and I was thinking, wow, man, I do this all the time in the morning time when there's not a camera to look at and talk to or talk into, or I always have these great ideas and then I forget to write them down. So I'm going to kind of change up the program just a little bit going forward. Not always going to be able to be on the motorcycle, but I want to make content out of these thoughts that I'm having and these ideas that I'm having. So this is my sort of quick fix for that. So, but you know, just random thoughts. I did a video probably 3 or 4 Saturdays ago now where I had tagged Insane Throttle and Black Dragon Biker talking about motorcycle stuff. Of course, Hollywood over at Insane Throttle came back and gave me a great comment, kind of boosted my confidence a little bit in talking about things. If it seems kind of dark, guys, it's just a rainy day in Georgia. It's just gray and miserable out here. But You know what? I've been watching here. I've been studying probably since about August, September. I've started digging into the motorcycle culture a little more, especially the club culture. I've been paying attention to what's been being said, what's been being done, and guys, I'll tell you, seems like almost every day there's a new motorcycle club related killing or a shooting, or the cops are busting in on them. Now, I can't speak to that because I'm not inside their club, but what I see is the third person perspective, someone outside looking in. You know, it seems like the motor, and I'll tell you, Hollywood over at Insane Throttle, y'all go give Hollywood a like, a subscribe, and share his content, because he's given no quarters, guy. He's coming down on these clubs pretty hard for their conduct and the way they're doing things. And he is somebody from inside that world who can do that. He has a voice inside that world. But you know, I just started thinking about the broader picture of it. You know, I can remember the club scene, motorcycle club scene from the 90s. But talking about what's happening to the modern day club scene, you know, there's an erosion, guys. There's a whole lot of posturing. There's a whole lot of false ideology going around. There is a whole lot of negative publicity surrounding the motorcycle scene right now, club scene. Motorcycle culture has always been one of those, I don't want to say it's polarizing, but to an extent it is a little bit polarizing. But what you're seeing is a lot of these clubs are shrinking. Their memberships going down. Chapters are starting to close. And man, you hate to say it because you don't want to draw heat from nobody, but at the end of the day, you know, who do they blame? Well, you know, even in the corporate world, from this world going forward, you know, any kind of business model that you're looking at, you know, it's the club's fault. It's their own fault that this is happening to them, because they have allowed, and not every club, and I'm not trying to broad brush every club, guys. This is just me generalizing what I'm seeing from the third person perspective. And, you know, guys, everything I'm seeing is not good. They've allowed their clubs to become eroded. They've allowed their members to do a little bit too much posturing. You know, I come from the old school where you kept things quiet. And I'll say this, and I really want you to understand what I'm saying here. There's no longer doing dirt on the quiet. There's no longer doing things without being seen. Everybody sees everything everybody does anymore. Just like this, social media has come along, and the thing that's hurting the motorcycle clubs today is the social media biker. You know, everybody's a content creator, or everybody's shooting Instagram clips or TikTok clips or TikTok bikers. So nothing that you do anymore is secret. There's nothing that you do that isn't some way, somehow, whether it's by your own cell phone, by your buddy's cell phone camera, by the cameras on the poles at intersections. There is no secret stuff anymore. There just isn't. So when you factor that in, it becomes a major factor of why the club scene may be eroding as much as it is. I don't see, and I've said this in the past, I've said it more than once, I don't see the club scene completely dying and going away. I think there's always going to be a need for the club scene, but I think they're going to shrink. I think I don't think the evolution of the clubs is going to always be to their benefit. So I think you're going to see them continue to and downgrade, and that's kind of what I want to talk about with this series here. Is just, you could cherry pick things that have happened in the last 2 decades that have completely eroded what that idea was of the motorcycle club. And guys, one of the biggest things that happened that's eroded these clubs is the simple fact that, you know, it's public perception. Guys, I'm gonna tell you, anything you do, whether it's online with this chat right here, doing YouTube content, whether it's doing Instagram, the public perception is what you are being judged by. Meaning what John Q and Joan Q public see you doing in your everyday life. That's what's going to set the perception of what the rest of the world sees also. You know, when you got someone who's on Instagram saying, hey, every time these guys come to our city, it's trouble. They destroy things. Somebody ends up getting killed, or they end up with a bunch of them being arrested. And these cities are fighting back, guys. Florida right now is not playing with bikers. I'm going to tell you right now, if you are a motorcycle club and you are not in Florida, don't go to Florida, because Florida ain't playing. There's a video going around now, and Dragon and Hollywood covered it, of a sheriff going to Tank Town, renting a tank and crushing a motorcycle. A county sheriff. So they're not playing. Florida is not playing with bikers whatsoever, and it's the same in Georgia. I was coming back from where was it? Dalton, Chatsworth, and I was by myself shooting content, and I had seen about 4 motorcycles pulled over at the base of Fort Mountain. Like 3 cops on them. They were at that gas station at the bottom of Fort Mountain on the Chatsworth side. Now, cops aren't going to play, and if you're huddled up, or you're grouped up and you're wearing a cut, or you're flashing a diamond or a back patch, you're just drawing attention to yourself. So in the erosion, you may be saying, well, T-Bone, what happened that started causing this? Well, man, the first thing that started causing the erosion was my generation, Generation X. We were the beginning of the erosion process for the motorcycle club, because we weren't good at being told what to do, guys. Because you got to think about Gen X. A lot of the Gen Xers raised themselves. I mean, my mom was murdered when I was 11 years old. I had 2 twin brothers younger than me, and my dad clocked out. He just left the chat completely. So guys and gals out there in Gen X who raise themselves, they have a real hard time with authority. As a matter of fact, I looked at a study that was done between boomers, Gen X, millennial, and now early birth Gen Z. And Gen X is the trouble with authority generation. We, for whatever reason, you know, whether it be just mandatory rules, that word mandatory throw me off. We're the generation that we're not playing that game. We're not the tell us generation. We're the show us generation. Show us why. So I think the erosion that we're seeing some 25, 30 years later, I think it kind of began with my generation, because the perception that the movies was given, and I'm talking about them old cult classic movies like Easy Rider and Glory Stompers and all those movies that we loved as we were kids growing up, the perception that those movies gave is not the perception that we were seeing. The bikes, brotherhood, and booty, we weren't seeing that. We were seeing, you have to do this, you got to do this. if you leave our club and you go out bad, we're going to take your house, we're going to take your motorcycle, we're going to beat you down. My generation looked at that and went, well, that's not for us. Good luck with your boy club, we're not in it. So I think it began with my generation, although I think a lot of my generation was down to be in clubs. But I think there was just, and the 90s changed things, guys. The 90s changed all of the perception that was being put out about, especially 1%er motorcycle clubs, outlaws, Hells Angels, banditos, so on and so forth. Warlocks, pagans. The public perception was bad. What was being put out by the media was bad. And if you were just a guy who wanted to ride his motorcycle and be left alone, then what you were seeing in the world of the motorcycle club was not it didn't tempt you to join. So that's one of the other things we've talked about here, keeping in line with the perception of things, is we've talked about the television show Sons of Anarchy. Now, that is a hot button topic. For a show that was ranked #1 in the U.S., had more viewers each week, set all kind of records. Nobody seems to have watched that show. That show it was a double-edged sword. And standing back, looking at the perception of it, that show was a double-edged sword, because on one side of the sword, it brought a lot of good attention to the motorcycle club scene. There was an undertone of unity, there was an undertone of brotherhood, that someone had you back. But then the other side of that sword was a lot of backbiting and a lot of throat cutting. And I think one of the biggest black eyes that the motorcycle club culture took came from that show. And I'll tell you why. I know y'all seen the video. It made its rounds on every platform there was for it to make its rounds on. Of the young kid pulling up to a gas pump, putting gas in his vehicle, and these bikers roll up on him and strip the cut off of him, and he was wearing his Sons of Anarchy cut. That one drew a lot of backlash. There was a lot of bad press came out of that. That was a huge black eye on the club culture. Because you're mad at a kid who 17, 18 year old had watched this show from the time he was 11, 12 years old. Now he got old enough to get him a motorcycle. He was such a fan of the show, he decided to buy their merchandise. And that's all it was, guys. It was Sons of Anarchy merchandise. And man, the 1%ers especially lost their mind. Now, old school, I get it. I understand the work that's put into earning your patch. I get that. But these kids today don't understand your culture. And you can't ask them to adhere by your rules and your standards, because they're not in your world. And that's what I've been saying from the very beginning. These kids aren't in your world. They bought merchandise from a television series show. No different than Beavis and Butthead. No different than going out and buying their favorite rock band t-shirt. They bought merchandise that FX and the creators of Sons of Anarchy sold. They were just consumers. So it was in no way, shape, or form their fault. It was no way, shape, or form them showing disrespect to your world because they didn't adhere by your rules, because they don't live by your rules. And that was one that kind of got me up in guards. I was like, yeah, come on guys, y'all got to stop that. You're going to have to knock that off. And I always listen to the backlash about Sons of Anarchy. If you had a problem, meaning the club scene had a problem, there were club members of the Hells Angels that was in that television series. Sonny Barger was in several episodes. Happy was a Hell's Angel. The big guy, long hair, he started out as a nomad. I can't never remember his name, but he's a Hell's Angel. There were Hell's Angels. David Brava, maybe that was Happy's real name. But anyway, there were real Hell's Angels. So if there was a problem with the merchandise, then that should have been ground level. They should have said, hey guys, y'all might not want to sew these these patches on a vest and sell it to the public. You're going to cause problems. But here's the problem with that. Sorry about that, guys. Whew. Before I had a sneeze that nearly took me out. Merchandising, and let me say this about kind of what you're looking at on those lines. Could the cut have been different that they were merchandising and selling? Certainly. I know at some point the cut that you could buy, and I'll tell you that the one percenters didn't care about the name Sons of Anarchy. They didn't care about the Grim Reaper patch. They cared about that bottom rocker where you were saying California. I understand that. I'm old school. I understand the protocol on that. But these kids, these Gen Z kids, didn't understand that. So what you ended up doing, and let me say this. Hollywood, California, where the movies happen, is a machine. You're never going to outmoney them, and you're never going to outlawyer them. So if they want to put out that merchandise, they're going to do it. Your little concerns about it ain't going to matter, because all them guys sitting out there in them three-piece suits care about is what their bottom line is on the money situation. So Hollywood, California is a machine, so you're not going to outdo them. But what they could have done, instead of putting California, Wyoming, etc., instead of putting a state down there, they could have just put Sons of Anarchy Fan Club. I think that would have flown over okay. It would have still been a three-piece patch, but it wouldn't have been the traditional three-piece. Even in that show, I can't recall one person's cut having the 1% diamond on it. So they portrayed that club in the television show as a outlaw club, but they weren't a 1% club. They were just called a outlaw club. So there is a difference between an outlaw and a 1%. But to know what that is, you need to go over and check out Black Dragon Biker, check out Insane Throttle, check out Hollywood, because they can tell you what the subtle differences are. There are differences. But that was when I said, guys, y'all might want to pull back on this and put a lid on, cap on some of this rhetoric. You're threatening these kids who were just buying merchandise to support their favorite television show. And I think that moment probably gives the motorcycle club culture one of the biggest black eyes that it would ever have in modern times. That's why I said earlier, I think that television show, it served as a double-edged sword. It did good things, it did bad things, and I think the bad things really were bad. I think the things that they were talking about the club stood for were bad. Meaning that they didn't show the motorcycle club culture in the best light. I mean, I think we can all agree on that. When you've got a guy called Jax Taylor who's just running around, he's basically just a killer. He's shooting everybody. Everybody's a killer on that show, and the bodies were piling up, and there was never really any justice coming from it. It kind of put a bad light on the motorcycle club culture. So I can see the complaint coming from that side. But the thing is you're dealing now with a whole new group of people who aren't going to subscribe to your ideals because they are not in your world. So that's just my 2 cents from the outside looking in. All right, guys, so that was tonight's episode of Rolling with T-Bone. I hope y'all enjoyed it. If you're new here, I asked you if you would to stick around to the end of this episode, and I'd talk to you again. Guys, what I would like for you to do from here is go backwards. Don't hit the subscribe button just yet, because I'm not for everyone, and I understand that. But what I would like for you to do, guys, I have over 5 years, over 400 episodes worth of Rolling with T-Bone for you to check out. You might even find an episode that's right for you. Then if you like what you see, you think we might be right for you, consider hitting the subscribe button and becoming a part of the Rolling with T-Bone crew. We would love to have you here. But guys, to the old ones who are here, to the OGs, I love you. Y'all are the reason I keep doing this. Guys, until the next time though, I got work to do. So y'all remember, like, share, comment, go backwards, watch, and subscribe. Guys, until the next time, take care of yourselves, take care of each other, and as always, thank you for watching.